Hey, if you're a University of Maine system employee who works overtime, this explainer is just for you. We're about to break down a new federal tax deduction that could save you some real money. We're going to walk you through what it is, where to find it on your forms, and exactly how you can claim it.
So let's just start with this question. What if you could pay less tax on all that overtime you've been working? Well, thanks to a new temporary federal law, that's actually a real possibility for the next few years. So let's dive into the basics of this new tax break.
All right, first up, we're going to look at what the law is, when it's active, and, this is super important, exactly what kind of overtime pay actually qualifies.
Okay, the first thing you absolutely have to know is that this is a temporary law. It kicks in on January 1st, 2025, and it only covers the tax years from 2025 through 2028. After that, it's scheduled to expire unless Congress decides to extend it. So you should really think of this as a 4-year window of opportunity.
Now, here's a really crucial point. This deduction doesn't apply to all of your overtime earnings. Nope, it only applies to what the law calls qualified overtime compensation. And what is that? Well, it's specifically the premium portion of your pay, the extra half you get for time and a half.
Let's break this down with a super simple example. Say your base pay is $20 an hour. That means your time and a half rate is $30. The deduction only applies to that extra premium, the $10 difference you see right here. That $10 an hour is your qualified amount. So who actually gets to take advantage of this? Well, you've got to be an hourly, non-exempt employee who earns overtime for working more than 40 hours in a work week. It's also really important that the overtime is based on what the Fair Labor Standards Act officially considers hours worked.
Okay, next, let's move on and manage some expectations when it comes to your paycheck versus your taxes. Because this section tackles the big one. Are you going to see this extra money in your paycheck right away?
And let me be super clear about this. The answer is no. Your take-home pay is not going to change from paycheck to paycheck. The University of Maine system is going to keep withholding taxes from your overtime just like it always has. This benefit is something you get later on when you actually file your taxes.
It's really important to understand that this law gives you a tax deduction, not a tax credit. A deduction lowers your total taxable income. Think of it like it shrinks the whole pie before taxes are calculated on it. A credit, on the other hand, is like a coupon that you apply at the very end to reduce your final tax bill. Since this is a deduction, your actual savings will really depend on your specific tax bracket.
And just to be crystal clear, this is a federal income tax deduction only. It has absolutely no impact on the money withheld for Social Security, Medicare, FICA, or any of your state taxes. Those are all going to stay exactly the same.
So you're probably thinking, if this change isn't showing up on my paycheck, where in the world will I find it? Well, that brings us right to our next section, how to read your new W-2 and find this information.
So here's how it's going to work. The University of Maine system is going to be tracking all of that premium portion overtime we talked about all year long, and then they'll report the grand total to you on your Form W-2, which you get every January.
Okay, pay close attention to this next part because it's a little tricky. The location of this number on your W-2 actually changes after the first year. So for the 2025 tax year, you're going to look in box 14 next to the code OT. But for all the later years, 2026 through 2028, it moves to box 12 with the code TT.
All right, now for the part you've been waiting for, the payoff. You've worked all year, you've gotten your W-2, you found the number, so now what? Let's talk about how you actually claim your deduction when you sit down to file your taxes. The process is actually pretty straightforward. Once you get your W-2, you just have to find that qualified overtime amount. Remember, either in box 14 or box 12. From there, you or your tax preparer will claim that amount as an above-the-line deduction on your federal tax return.
Now, there are a couple of limits you need to know about. There is a cap on how much you can deduct. As you can see, the maximum is $12,500 for single filers, and that doubles to $25,000 for those of you who are married and filing jointly.
And there's one final catch. This deduction is subject to an income phase-out. Basically, what this means is that if your income, specifically your modified adjusted gross income, is above a certain level, the deduction starts to shrink and can eventually go away completely. For single filers, that phase-out starts at an income of $150,000, and for joint filers, it begins at $300,000.
Okay, I know we've covered a lot of ground here, so let's wrap things up by boiling it all down to the most critical points you absolutely need to remember about this new tax deduction.
Here are your 4 key takeaways. First, this thing is temporary. It's only for tax years 2025 through 2028. Second, it's a deduction that reduces your taxable income. It's not a credit. Third, it only applies to that premium or half-time part of your overtime pay. And finally, number 4, you'll find the total amount you can claim on your W-2, but in a new spot.
And last but definitely not least, we have to share this very important message. The University of Maine system can't give you personal tax advice. Everybody's financial situation is different, so please make sure you consult with a qualified tax professional to understand exactly how this new law is going to apply to you.
And that's a wrap on our explainer. So the big question we want to leave you with is this. Knowing this is a temporary, 4-year window, how will you make the most of this tax break?